Back here at home, an ambitious water pipeline set to bring billions of gallons of water each year to the oil fields of West Texas. 9 counties signed off on the plan to bring the water in for fracking and for water supplies.
The water will make its way to West Texas from hundreds of miles away, where some question the impact on one of the most pristine rivers in the world, the Devil's River.
Talk of the project has some excited, but others concerned. CBS 7's Matt Riss joins us now with the beginning of another water war. Matt?
Now, to fully understand the fears behind massive groundwater pumping, you have to come out here to the Devil's River. It's one of Texas's last pristine rivers. It also is home to a number of threatened species. And for those whose way of life is along the river, they say it's worth protecting.
Anything that's good about water. Clarity, the taste, the smell. No Giardia, no fecal coliform, no heavy metals. Baseline for the quality of all river water in the state of Texas.
Since the 1970s, Gerald Bailey has made his living on the river.
And what brought me on here right away was the water itself and the devils.
From paddle to paddle, as an outfitter, he helps adventure seekers navigate the Devil's River Basin.
I don't have to have electricity, I don't have to have telephone, I don't have to have anything, but I do have to have that water.
The freshwater river is unique. It supports plants and animals found in few other places, an ecosystem tucked away in the dry Central Texas region, just outside Del Rio's Lake Amistad.
The Devil's River is actually a spring-fed river, groundwater. We have rain on the rocks miles and miles away, percolates down through the rock, and then comes out through the cracks and the fissures of spring water.
Hydrogeologist Daryl Peckham navigates the Devil's River.
Right where we wanted to go.
It sits above the Edwards Trinity Aquifer. He says the area is a logical target for groundwater pumping.
We're now looking to secure that water future. And Valverde County is one of the targets because it has a reliable groundwater supply.
And it's that groundwater supply that keeps Dolan Falls churning out thousands of gallons of water per second.
This is one of the largest continuous waterfalls in Texas. This is a special place, and there's nothing quite like it anywhere else in the world.
Douglas Meyer is the Devil's River Project Director at the Nature Conservancy, a group which bought up thousands of acres of land to preserve and protect the river.
There has been more drilling occurring in the region, especially north of the river. There's so much fresh water that's needed in the terms of fracking and production of oil and gas from these wells that I'm afraid there may be some great effect in the future due to the removal of water in any location around the region. Money on that. Right.
Much of the river is difficult to reach. ATVs, kayaks, or hiking boots are required.
The temperature of it is a little more constant. The water is much purer and cleaner than runoff water.
The river is just over 40 miles long from end to end. Lake Amistad sits at its base. For Gerald Bailey, the river was always calling.
Doing the Devils became something I wanted to do in the 60s when I was headed toward Big Bend on different occasions and crossed the Devils at Baker's and on a shortcut through to the other highway, and decided one day I'd do it, and finally I did.
But there is a concern. A plan by the VV Water Company out of Beeville hopes to pump billions of gallons of water out of the aquifer from 3 well sites near Lake Amistad.
It's going to make anyone that has water around or on or under their place is pretty passionate about the water, so naturally I'm concerned.
That's usually what we call a water war. And we've had those in the past, and we're going to have them in the future. And personally, I believe we're going to see one unfold here.
Now, the Devil's River is at the center of the water war. 9 West Texas counties passed resolutions in support of the pipeline. Tomorrow, we sit down with those behind the pipeline who answer questions about the potential impact. Join us tomorrow night at 10 o'clock for the conclusion of our Water Wars special report.
Jay Tatum, last night we showed you why those who live along or visit the Devil's River are so concerned. Tonight, we hear from the company behind the pipeline. The Devil's River sits along the Edwards Trinity Aquifer in south central Texas on top of a gold mine of water.
This can deliver so much water that the savings on other things make the water almost free.
Joe Carter and his partner John Littlejohn are behind the VV Water Company. They've been working on plans to pump groundwater out of Valverde County and sell it across Texas.
This is part of a bright future for West Texas. The price of water is going out of sight. Ultimately, that will take the water that is underneath the small communities.
A plan to sell drinking water to cities failed last year after opposition from the Devils River conservation groups. The latest attempt is aimed more at oil field companies to use the fresh water for fracking.
When you look at how much they're paying for water and water transfer and water trucking and how much diesel they're burning and how many tires they're blowing out, the cost of bringing this water the full length of the pipe in energy is about 1/4 of the cost of the diesel that they will use to haul it 4 miles.
The concept of pumping is nothing new. Texas groundwater law is based on rule of capture. Property owners own their groundwater, while surface water is state property. In Valverde County, you can pump as much as you want and send it anywhere.
We're in another significant drought. We're now looking to secure that water future. Valverde County is one of the targets because it has a reliable groundwater supply.
The company promises billions of gallons of water each year. It will make its way from Valverde all the way through 9 counties in West Texas. The largest is Andrews. Each county signed off on the West Texas Transportation Authority. That will allow right-of-way to build the pipeline and control its operation.
They will be in the driver's seat of how these things serve their community and the industry nearby. Because each county, they appoint one director and maintain that director on this board.
The authority will choose a service provider. The contract to run the pipeline will almost certainly go to Carter's company. Okay. So there's no chance that they could go with another company then? That's one question I had.
There's always a chance. This is a free enterprise world. They can do what they want to. They would be starting a long way behind.
Counties stand to gain by signing on to the Transportation Authority. They'll be able to buy water for residents at a much cheaper rate, while oil companies pay for the pipeline. The plan is not the first. VV Water tried to sell water to San Antonio, but the city backed out after opposition. Landowners along the Devils River formed conservancies to fight the plan.
Just the openness of the country, the purity of the water, the contrast of the Chihuahuan hillsides with the Caribbean blue water is just captivating.
Those same landowners are gearing up for a second fight.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pull the groundwater from a desert area and pump it uphill to other semi-arid areas.
Meantime, an oil and gas industry leader is fighting the pipeline, flying in the face of the very industry set to fund it.
The exportation of water outside of the Devils River Basin is the biggest threat.
David Honeycutt is the CEO of a major oil and gas company, Texas American Resources. He's also a landowner and the founder of the Devils River Conservancy.
It's the cleanest river in Texas. It is a special place.
Money on that.
Part of the thing that's protected the Devils River for years is the remoteness. That's one of the things that makes it special. It's our responsibility to preserve this river and this treasure.
Honeycutt believes the plan to use the water for fracking is not the answer.
I would not want to be an oil and gas producer out in the middle of the Odessa area and be responsible for draining the Devils River so I can frack some oil and gas wells.
He says oil and gas companies instead should turn to other solutions closer to home.
Conservation-minded oil and gas people are going to be who come along and help protect this river after all, because there are a lot of conservationists in my business.
Protection, the VV Water Company says, just isn't necessary. Is your project a threat to the Devils River?
No.
And why not?
Because the Devils River is exhausting its flow where we're picking it up. It is through with the water by the time it gets to us. Our well field is so distal that we're not concerned about affecting that spring flow. In the study you're using, they do mention that large pumping could correlate to changes in spring flow. They do recognize that, but they point to 3 different well fields. The opposition in this water war is as clear as the river's blue.
There are a number of things that I see wrong with that study. First of all, if you want water resource, you're going to have well fields right along the river, or else you're not going to have a reliable water supply. That water study suggests that you've got equivalent potential across a broad spectrum of land as you move away from these streams, and it's just not so.
Hydrogeologist Daryl Peckham weighs in.
We're going to see both sides of the argument. We're going to have the fear of the surface water being dried up, the other side saying, no, we're not going to dry it up and it's okay.
Peckham says it will come down to science.
You know, using the science to determine cause and effect. And to some degree, you have to pump it to know. When you're just simulating, there's so many factors. You're really only simulating a portion. You can't predict off of that.
To date, no pumping tests have been performed, only simulation. Do you have any idea of the potential cost of this project?
We do.
Would you like to share that with us?
It's not final. We'll share it when we go to market with the financing.
Do you guys have the financing in place to make this happen?
We have 3 outlets in the capital markets. We don't want to indicate a preference to any one of the 3 lest we make it a non-competitive proposition, you understand.
They represent a lot of things and make a lot of promises that you know, upon further investigation are not often and always the truth.
Promises Joe Carter says they intend to keep. If there were an impact to the Devils River watershed that was significant, what would you do?
Well, what we're going to do even before that would appear is to do everything we can to keep the rain barrel or the aquifer just as full as we possibly can.
So if there were a drop in the Devils River as a result of the project, would you consider stopping the exportation of water?
No, because it takes about 90 to 100 years for these things to occur, and the drop in the Devils River is not the result of our pumping. It's the result of pumping upstream from that.
And regardless of the science, some who live along the river.
I don't have to have electricity, I don't have to have telephone, I don't have to have anything, but I do have to have that water.
Hope they never get the chance to find out.
And I pray to God it don't happen that they remove water from this area.
Now, we did reach out to county commissioners in West Texas. Not one agreed to an on-camera interview. Most I spoke with said they only knew what was presented to them by the company before signing off on the agreement. One said he was not concerned. Another said he only knew about environmental concerns after Googling them following that meeting. I'm in the studio. Matt Rist, CBS 7 News.